Good evening and welcome. I am Rohit Gandhi and you're watching Gravitas, where we deconstruct the big news stories of the day and present various perspectives on the issue. On the big discussion tonight are three stories. The first story is about a man who wears many masks. Has the persona of Turkish President Erdogan impacted politics in Turkey today? Our second story is a network exclusive. Two RTI activists who exposed corruption in Mumbai jails are on the run to save their lives. And in the third discussion tonight, from Pakistan, here we take a look at what it means to be a religious minority in a Muslim majority country. In this first reaction after the Turkey nightclub attack, Turkish President Erdogan said, I quote, "They're trying to create chaos, demoralize our people and destabilize our country with abominable attacks which target civilians. We will retain our cool-headedness as a nation," unquote. Turkey vowed to punish social media users who praise the terrorism of Islamic militants. But secular critiques of President Erdogan say he and his government bear some responsibility for the New Year Eve terror attack that left 39 people dead. But what is Erdogan's plan? Is Turkey seriously considering bringing peace to Syria or trying to extricate itself from a situation which got out of control and which has now backfired on Turkey? Will Turkey now intensify its role in Syria? We will talk more about that in just a bit, but first, here's a report on what happened in the aftermath of the New Year Eve's carnage. WION's West Asia Bureau Chief, Anchal Vora, sent us this report.
39 lives cut short. The night of celebrating the arrival of the new year turned into their last. In solidarity, Turks are sending flowers and reading out messages of peace. That as they express anger with separatists and terrorists, some who were initially supported by their state.
IŞİD, PKK, PYD, bunların hepsi terör örgütüdür. Bizim için hiç fark etmez. Silahı olan, ülkesine silah çıkan herkes vatan hainidir. Biz öyle bakarız.
A spot popular with the youth here in Istanbul, one visited even by the likes of Selma Hayek and Uma Thurman, now is cordoned off. Rhina nightclub was attacked by ISIS on New Year's Eve. The choice of the place and the time goes on to show how ISIS wanted to hit Turkey hard. But the question is, what's the reason behind this love loss between Turkey and ISIS, a terror group that Turkey was accused of supporting?
ISIS used Turkey's border with Syria without restriction. Europeans who joined the ISIS and some of those who carried out terror attacks in Europe transited Turkey. At least 1,000 Turks joined ISIS, and arms were sent across the Turkish border to ISIS in Syria. It became a public secret. Even ally the United States had to admit. Joe Biden, in a lecture at Harvard University, accused Turkey of playing the Shia-Sunni game in Syria and funding anyone, including ISIS, to topple Assad. Ertuğrul is a senior journalist in Turkey. He says the coup attempt against Erdogan changed it all.
Birinci sebep Türkiye Esad rejiminin devrilmesini istiyordu. Sadece IŞİD'e değil, bölgedeki bütün muhalif güçlere yardım etmeye çalışıyordu. Türkiye bundan çok rahatsız oldu. Güney sınırında bir Kürt bölgesinin varlığını engellemek için IŞİD'e çok açık ve çok güçlü bir destek verdi. Türkiye'nin IŞİD'e karşı vermiş olduğu bu büyük destek NATO'nun, Amerika başta olmak üzere NATO'nun politikalarına tamamen ters düştü. 15 Temmuz sonrası NATO, Türkiye'ye nasıl davranması gerektiğini hatırlattı ve büyüttüğün gücü yok etmek için Türkiye'ye görev verdi.
So why is ISIS attacking Turkey? NATO pressure on Turkey led to Turkey attacking ISIS. Post the coup in July, Turkey intensified attacks on the terror group. ISIS now seeks revenge on Turkey for sending forces into Syria. ISIS says Turkey betrayed the group. But the other major problem is the radicalized elements in Turkey are tacitly supporting ISIS ideology.
It's the same story that we've seen even in South Asia. If a state sponsors terrorism, at the end, the terror group that it has sponsored, helped, will attack itself. It's happened in Pakistan, and now it's happening here in Turkey. Turkey is militarily attacking ISIS, but thousands of Turks also joined ISIS, buying into the extremist Islamist propaganda that was propagated also inside Turkey. They are not happy with the fact that Turkey is standing up against ISIS, and that will continue to be a problem for some time to come. In Istanbul, Anshul Vora, WION.
To talk more about that, I have with me Mr. M.K. Bhadrakumar, former ambassador to Turkey. He joins me live from New Delhi. Anshul Vora, WION's West Asia Bureau Chief, joins me live from Istanbul. And Daniele Pagani from our studios here in New Delhi. Let me ask you the question first, Anshul. You are in Istanbul. What are your impressions? Do you get a sense it is very conservative? Do you think the support for any of these groups existed, and what are they doing with it now?
Well, you talk to common people even when you're driving in the cab around Istanbul, and the common man is aware that there was a certain amount of support that the Turkish government gave to several terror groups, several rebel groups, anybody who stood up against Assad. Because at some point they believed that Assad would fall, that would be good for Turkey, because there is also this neo-Ottomanism there happening, theory that the Erdogan government has tried to sell the people of Turkey. So it is actually quite known. The people who were outside the Arena nightclub where I was yesterday and today as well, they said that all of these terror groups, whether it is the Kurdish militants who are attacking Turkey or now ISIS, are terrorists and nothing more. And the fact of the matter is that the Turkish government must stand up and do more against them. So the man on the street really feels that these are all terror groups that are attacking Turkey, but the fact that there was support given to all kinds of rebel groups anti-Assad, including ISIS, is well known.
Right. Ambassador Bhadrakumar, what is driving Erdogan? Is he clear about what he wants?
So I don't get it. Can you repeat?
So,
it's an echo.
Is Erdogan clear what he wants out of the whole situation? Because there are certain complexities involved when it comes to Syria, the support for certain groups, and they've been buying oil from a lot of these rebel groups. And then on the other hand, there is his own government and his own people, who a lot of them who are very, I would say, secular and progressive and liberal, while there are some who certainly are a little more right-wing. But is Erdogan clear himself what he wants?
Well, you know, there is much can be said on both sides, in the sense that Turkey's intervention in an active way began at the prodding of the United States, number one. Number two, Turkey was not alone in this. The United States, other regional allies, regional states, particularly from the Gulf region, they too were protagonists in the game that was unfolding in Syria. They were riding the wing of the Arab Spring for actually a regime change agenda. Now, in the process, somewhere along the line, as we know, President Barack Obama held back. He was leading, he preferred to lead from the rear. And that left Turkey up front, because geographically, if you look at the map, you will find that that is a frontline state. So much of the activity happened through the Turkish territory. A very good question which comes up is, why did Turkey allow this to happen? Why did it allow Turkey to be sucked into the Syrian cauldron? Whoever might have told Erdogan or the Turkish leadership, ultimately it is the Turkish leadership which was responsible for it.
Absolutely.
I saw in the newspapers today that the main opposition leader has called for the government to step down. And they have openly alleged that all this is a blowback from Syria. So I suppose, to answer your question, in the ultimate analysis, the buck stops on Erdogan's table.
Mr. Bhadrakumar, you're
sometimes these are, this can have...
Sure. No, you're absolutely right, Mr. Bhadrakumar. The buck stops back at Mr. Erdogan. Years ago, when this was beginning to unfold, what was seen on the ground was they were challenged by how the Kurds were amalgamating and how they were coming together. And it's certainly one of those issues that's going to be looked at. But I'd like to all of you to stay on with us. It's been about 3 days since the bloodbath in Istanbul discotheque, and the attacker, who massacred 39 people and injured at least 60 others, is still on the run. There have been 8 arrests of possible accomplices, but no clue of who the cold-blooded butcher of Istanbul was. So what do we know about him so far? Here's a report.
The butcher of Istanbul, who slaughtered dozens of people in cold blood early on New Year's Day, is on the loose. But who is this man? To some eyewitnesses, he looked Kyrgyz or Uzbek. Others say he shouted something in Arabic. CCTV footage and photographs have been found, as have his fingerprints. But wherever he may be, the murderer is probably armed, dangerous, and a narcissist too. This is allegedly the murderer, and this a selfie video he shot perhaps hours before spraying bullets on revelers at the Reina nightclub. This man seems impressed, even amused by the magnitude of the mission he is to undertake. Sources in the investigation team have told Turkish reporters a little more to confirm the initial impression of a ruthless killer. 600 people were in the nightclub that evening, toasting the new year with champagne, when terror burst in through the main door. Sources gave these details too. The gunman was dressed in a green shirt, dark pants and black boots. He fired more than 180 shots and changed cartridges 6 times. He chose headshots even upon people crouching on the floor. He first went upstairs and then down to the ground floor. The shooting lasted 7 minutes and he flung hand grenades too. After the massacre, the murderer spent 13 minutes in the kitchen, where he changed his clothes, leaving his coat behind with a 500 lira note in the pocket. He then took a taxi and disappeared. The Islamic State has claimed responsibility. Turkish authorities are inclined to place the man as a national of Central Asia. To anyone who has followed the trajectory of the Islamic State, this should come as no surprise. One of its toughest units is the so-called Uzbek battalion. The number of Islamic State fighters from Russia and the Central Asian republics is estimated between 2,000 and 7,000. This is not the first time that Turkey has come under attack from militants of Central Asian origin. The attack on Istanbul airport last year too was executed by Islamic State terrorists of that region. The irony is lost on no one, for it is Turkey and Russia who have brokered a ceasefire agreement in Syria. A ceasefire that, like peace in the region, is now fraying at the edges. Padma Rao, WION.
Daniel, let me bring you into this discussion. How do you see Turkey's role in the region? You've just come back recently from the areas where the Kurds are.
Well, right now Turkey is in a tricky situation. We have to remember that the Turkish government tried to push a lot to participate to the Mosul offensive to defeat the ISIS in its last stronghold in Iraq. But they weren't allowed because the Iraqi Prime Minister denied them the authorization to enter that theater of war. And they have done nothing for years actively against the Islamic State in Syria, and they left a corridor, a part of the border that they share with Syria, open for years. So they have been isolated more and more during the last years and the last months. Now they have decided to directly take part to the fight against the Islamic State in Syria, and this is what is coming back from that border that has been open for at least 4 years.
Mr. Bhadrakumar, let me bring you in here again. Now, the Americans certainly, stepped back and let Erdogan and Turkey handle its own challenges and handle the oil that was coming out of the IS areas. Now, and Turkey was doing the same thing when the Iraq war unfolded in 2003. There were literally 4,000 trucks that were crossing over from Iraq into Turkey for refining. So it's really milked as much as it could from both the Iraq and the Syria crisis. How do they go back to not getting all of this oil or not being able to refine all of this oil? Can its economy sustain itself?
You see, this so-called oil trade has to be seen in a very different context. Following as a result of the developments which took place in Iraq, right from the beginning of the 1990s, a virtually independent entity has formed in the northern part of Iraq, which is Iraqi Kurdistan. As you know well, Turkey has a Kurdish problem, and therefore Turkey has always taken care that these Turkish militants, these Kurdish militants operating in the eastern part of Turkey, do not enjoy sanctuaries inside Iraqi Kurdistan. So what they have done over the years is they have built a relationship with the leadership of the Iraqi Kurdistan, Barzani in particular. Now with Barzani they have excellent chemistry. He is a frequent visitor to Ankara. Even during my time this relationship was going on full steam. And it is the Kurdistan area which is pumping oil to the Mediterranean ports of Turkey, Iskenderun. And it is the main source of revenue for the Iraqi Kurdistan. Now, as you know, there is also a tussle going on between Erbil, which is the Iraqi Kurdistan's capital, and Baghdad. So Baghdad has alleged that Turkey is fostering, encouraging, or giving sustenance to the formation of an independent Kurdistan, which is not correct, which is simplifying matters a great deal, because Turkey really doesn't want a Kurdistan entity to materialize in the region.
Absolutely.
So this relationship goes back in time. And some of these areas have come under the influence of the Islamic State. Now, there have been Russian allegations that the Islamic State has also been mobilizing revenue by using these pipelines coming, or even by sending via trucks to Turkey and to the world market. Even Israel has been brought into it. There have been allegations that even Israel was part of this deal, and some of the oil was handled by Israel. So it's very difficult to come to a firm conclusion about it. It is not a main source of oil for Turkey, which is a net importer of oil, because Turkey is very heavily dependent on Russian supplies and marginally, to some extent, Iranian supplies of gas. So I don't lend much credence to this as a dimension to the Syrian question.
Absolutely. Anshul, you had mentioned IS